bless Yahweh because he's shown up today. From the very first person that spoke, the prayer, the scriptures, he has been present. And if you don't understand what you're feeling right now, it is the presence of Yahweh. And he's come right in the center somewhere to touch us. Don't miss his touch. No matter how gentle that comes, he is here. I feel like Yahweh has prepared a very good foundation for my thoughts to you today. Let me begin by asking you if you ever read through the scriptures, the entire book. Most of us, well, a lot of us would put our hands up and say, yes. Some of us have been walking this way for quite some time. But if you come to read this book, you get to the book of Chronicles, 1 Chronicles. And there's a great chunk of names of people, you know. And you think, for goodness sake, why has the scriptures got, it's 9 chapters of people's names, random people that some of us wouldn't even know about. And it's difficult to even pronounce some of the words, isn't it? Just which so-and-so was the father of so-and-so, and it just goes on and on. And it's a little bit discouraging if you're trying to get through the book, the whole Bible, to read 9 chapters of names of people. You know, if there was names like our names, oh yeah, I know so-and-so, it would mean more, yes. Even the descendants of Judah's lineage was over 500 names. You see, lineage and tracing back to your roots was of utmost importance to the families of the scriptures. And actually, similarly today, we have TV programs on ITV, one of them called Long Lost Family, where you can find your family, those people that you didn't know, or even websites where you can search for great aunt and great ancestry of back in the day. It's important to people, and important to some of us too. Maya Angelou, the American poet, memoirist, and civil rights activist, frequently expressed the same idea in her writing. She said, if you don't know where you come from, you don't know where you're going. And from a biblical standpoint of view, knowing who you are and where you come from confirms a few really important things. It establishes covenantal identity. So who am I legally obligated to? I am married. I am obligated to my husband and to the vows that I took to stay in that relationship. That's an example. It also proves legal inheritance rights. In ancient Israel, land and property rights were directly tied to family ties and family tribes. The book of Joshua outlines how the promised land was divided among 12 tribes, making accurate genealogy records was essential for rightful inheritance. And we have another example in the Old Testament scriptures where a man only had 5 daughters, leaving no male heirs. The daughters of Zelophehad, daughters like Noah and Milcah and Tirzah, they successfully contested patriarchal inheritance laws to claim their father's land. And then, of course, the third final thing why it's important to know where you're coming from is that somebody like we know who Yeshua is, he needed to be able to trace back the prophecies about him thousands and thousands of years earlier so that he was true to the book. It wasn't a lie. That's why it's important to kind of know where you come from. So I want to introduce, you're wondering what's this all got to do with my message? I'm coming to it. So I want to introduce you to my guy. In the middle of 1 Chronicles 1, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, the father was so-and-so, and father was so-and-so, and so. There's this, thank you, Abigail, there's this verse. Jabez was more honorable than his brothers. His mother had named him Jabez, saying, I gave birth to him in pain. Jabez cried out to the God of Israel, oh, that you would bless me and enlarge my territory. Let your hand be with me and keep me from harm, so that I will be free from pain. And Yahweh granted his request. The list of names in this chapter included some celebrities of the Bible, the Adams and the Noahs and the Abrahams and the King David. King David had great governance and ruled Israel and Judah for 40 plus years. Adam was bequeathed a beautiful garden created just for him and his wife. For everything, every single need that he had, it was his. He introduced the family to the world. And Abraham, he was told that his descendants would be more than the sand on the seashores. A week or so ago, I was up in the northeast at Whitley Bay, and I was looking at the sand, and I was thinking about this, and I thought, this sand is so tiny. You can't even hold it. The descendants of Abraham, more than that, and we don't see too many stars. If you go to the Caribbean and it's dark and you look up, you're wow. And then, in the midst of this list, suddenly, out of nowhere, no more fathers of this and fathers of that, we get this guy. The author stops, pauses, highlights one non-celebrity guy. I wonder what Yahweh was thinking about. He was interested in this ordinary guy. Just an ordinary guy. Amidst the list of people, just an ordinary guy. Or even a plain Jane, if you want to be amongst the females. But you know what? He mattered to Yahweh. He mattered to Yahweh. So we're going to take a look at my ordinary guy. Let's think about his parenting or his upbringing. Nothing about this person was what I would call outstanding. He wasn't royalty. He wasn't greatly talented. He didn't have outstanding parents. He didn't come from money. And he didn't have status or position. He was just ordinary. A regular guy born to regular nobody parents. Just the run of the mill. And yet, Yahweh turned the spotlight on his life. We read in this same verse, which has gone off the screen, but his mother named him Jabez, saying, I gave birth to him in pain. This ordinary guy was hampered by a traumatic birthing experience. It would be quite unusual for any mother who didn't have pain in childbirth. Mothers, is that right? I'm not a mother. Yeah? This was the result of the first parents, the first couple, the great celebrity of Adam and Eve. They disobeyed the Creator. He told them not to do something, and then they went ahead and did it and disobeyed him. And one of the consequences of that was to bring children into the world was going to be a painful experience. I'm quite certain that most mothers would testify to this experience, that joy comes when the baby is brought into the world. Yes? The ecstasy and the joy that is experienced even after the exhaustion of bringing that child into the world superseded the pain just endured. The mother's heart is full of love and longing towards that little child. Interestingly, we don't know if Jabez was the first of her children. You see, trauma can lead to a decision where mother says, no, I'm not doing this again, no more children. Too devastatingly difficult. But certainly we read she had more children. Jabez had brothers. So there was maybe more to her pain, this pain, than maybe the other children that she brought into the world. That was his upbringing. What about his name? You see, Jabez in Hebrew is Yahbets, Y-A-H-B-E-T-S, meaning sorrowful or born in pain. It comes from the Hebrew root word of grief and pain. And most of us will know that the name that's given to somebody in the Hebrew scriptures means that the name and the person become one. So his name is pain and trouble and grief. Synonymous, that's what we call it. The name and the character and the person is one and the same. Was it an emotional thing? Or was it a physical pain that he had to endure? We're not certain. But certainly the emotional effects were playing a huge part in this young man's life. Or was he born disabled? Either way, the words spoken over him as a child led to an automatic fulfillment of his life, which was pain. So what about this ordinary guy? He stands out in the middle of the celebrities of the Bible and has his own little bio all about himself. A bio tells you who you are, what makes you unique. It explains your accomplishments, your traits, your qualities. I might write a bio about myself if I want to be on social media for TikTok or Instagram. And anybody that looks at that immediately gets the sense of, oh, that's who Daslie's all about, because it's a short little paragraph. This guy, his bio, his life was described in just 2 verses. So let's explore his journey. The first thing we read of him was that Jabez was more honorable than his brothers. Amidst his pain, he was known as an honorable person. Honorable, he did what was right. He was of good character. He was honest and deserving of respect. Just an ordinary guy, but he was held in high esteem. I wonder if he sought to have right standing with the Almighty, with Yahweh, and therefore it was credited to him as honor. But his next steps, his next action of this man described his connection with the Almighty. He had a conversation with Yahweh, with God. And he says, oh, that you would bless me. The first thing he did was that he cried out to Yahweh Almighty. It would appear that the name spoken over him from childbirth was a prophecy to harm him, but unintentionally. Unintentionally. I wonder if his mother had the medical condition HG. I can't tell you how to say that in medical terms. It's called HG. It's that medical condition where the woman is constantly nausea and sick and poorly and vomiting the whole 9 months. I wonder if she had been sexually abused. I also wonder if she was raped. She had been through so much, she could see no other way but pain. And then she transferred that emotion into her newborn son. There's a real similar and modern day process. If you go to a psychotherapist, it's called transference. And transference is the unconscious process where a client redirects feelings, desires, or expectations from a past significant relationship, such as a parent, onto their therapists. The therapist, he or she, will probe with certain questions to get to the root of what's happening, to cause that individual to come to a place of resolution and understanding about why they're in the place that they're in. But you see, I want to say it was unintentional. And what do we do with words that are placed over us? What do we do with those words? The tongue, the words put over you and I, we need to be careful what we say to people. It has the power of life, and it has the power of death. What we say. His mother didn't know that she was pronouncing a damning prophecy over her son's life, or even transferring the emotion of what she was feeling. Didn't know that. But what was happening was that her son, in a simple act of a name, her son was producing a slow, burning death to her son. The tongue is powerful. Life and death. You hold that power. I hold that power. Be careful. So what do we do with those words when it comes unintentional, or even if people try to put those things on us? What are we going to do? We're going to reject them. The king of Balak, King Balak of Moab, sent for a guy, a prophecy guy, Balaam, said, "Come, I need you to curse Israel. Come." So the man came. And every time he opened his mouth, he could say nothing but good things. And the king was getting very cross. Because he wasn't cursing Israel, he was blessing Israel. And that verse, that's the story. You see, no one can curse what Yahweh has not cursed. So what do we do with words that are placed over us? We're going to push them back. We're going to reject them because Yahweh says, I'm his. I matter to him. And then what am I going to do? I'm going to find some positive words from the scriptures. The promises of Yahweh in his word are incredible. And he confirms that his plans for you and I are for peace and not for harm, for a future. For a future. To sit and chill out, to have the peace of Messiah constantly your portion. I'm reminded of another man from the scriptures. The man who had all his life had struggled, fought a fight. And one day when he's meeting his brother, he said, I'm going to go across the other side of the brook, Jabez brook, and I'm going to stay there, and I'm going to let my family go this side. And everything that he owned, his family and his cattle, stayed that side. And in the middle of the night, he has a wrestling encounter with the Almighty. And he said, I'm not letting you go until you bless me. Yahweh Yeshua was not as strong as Jacob, and Yeshua just had the advantage. He says, I'll push your hip out of joint, and then I'm going to go. But he said, I won't let you go till you bless me. You see, this non-celebrity guy, his life mattered to the Almighty. So the first thing he did was cry out. And then the second thing he did, he asks Yahweh for his favor. He says, oh, Yahweh. Oh, here we go. That's just a summary of that. Oh, that you would bless me. The effect of the words, the rejection of such words, and the positive response to the words. That's what we need to do. And the second thing in his favor, it's a twofold. He asked Yahweh for favor, and he said, enlarge my territory. What does that mean? It means expand my vision, remove limiting beliefs. I have been hampered my entire life with pain, but now I call to you, Yahweh. Release me, open the windows of heaven, cause my territory to be big and wide. I don't want to live this way any longer. And then, not only were we talking about expanding our vision, but when we're thinking about vision, immediately I want to think about our eyesight. I ask you, what do you see? Do you see Yahweh working in us to reach the communities around us? What is your vision? I say if you want Yahweh to enlarge your territory, your vision needs to be clear. You need to be able to see with eyes that are not covered up with scales. See, when the servant Gehazi was with Elisha, all he saw was the armies around him. And what did Elisha say to him? He said, I'm going to pray. And he said, open his eyes, Yahweh, that he may see. Then Yahweh opened the servant's eyes, and he looked and saw the hills full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. You see, when we want to enlarge our territory, we have to have a vision. And if my eyes cannot see, then what we need to do is ask Yahweh to remove the scales from my eyes so that I can see clearly what you want me to do. The vision is the first bit. The second bit is that actually now I want to increase my capacity without holding back. I want to expand my influence to the people around me. Jabez would have said, I'm not sure how I can live without this pain. I've lived with it my entire life. But I want to. I want to be able to fly. I want to be able to see that the sky's the limit to what Yahweh has for me. You see, if it was making an application to us, I'd say I want us to grow in what Yahweh has purposed for us to do. I want Yahweh to remove the restrictions. What I am now needs to increase outwards. And then once I've increased my capacity, I'm going to make room for growth in Yahweh. I'm going to change the trajectory of pain. I want you to make me influential in all that I do. Let everything I put my hand to be successful, was the promise of Deuteronomy 28. Everything I put my hand to, let it be successful. I want to make room for growth in my life. You see, if I am really serious about Yahweh making my territory wide, then I become like the psalmist 1 says, a tree planted by streams of water, who yield its fruit in season. You must have fruit. Yield its fruit, and whose leaves does not wither, and then whatever he or she does, it prospers. Let me be a giver and not just a taker. Enlarging my territory. And then the second part of the favor that he asks Yahweh, he says, and let your hand, let your hand be with me. Heal my pain, was what he was saying to the Almighty. John 21 tells us of a time when, I want to say the Apostle Peter, but he wasn't the apostle then, he was just a disciple of Yeshua, Peter. You know, Peter was depressed. He was in a place of depression, a real bad state. And I want to suggest this to you, that each of us has, I'm calling, a default setting. What does that mean? It means that I have something that I fall back to when I am not in a good place. So whether that's drink, or whether that's drugs, or whether that's binge TV, or whether, you know what your weaknesses are. Each of us has a default setting. Now, Peter's default setting was, I know what to do now. I can fish. I'm going fishing. You see, 3 years earlier, Yeshua said to him, stop, leave that. I'm going to make you fishers of men. But he was depressed. He was so low. He didn't know what to do. He had just disappointed his greatest friend. He was in the worst place ever. And he said, I'm not doing this anymore. I don't want to fish for men anymore. I'm just going to go fishing because I know about fishing. And then his friends, I said, we'll come with you then. And I want to just caution leaders just to say here, the problem is with my default setting is sometimes I lead others astray as well. So Peter's default setting was, I'm going fishing. We'll come with you then as well. So the commission was that he took several people away from what Yeshua wanted them to do because he wasn't feeling all that great. He was in great pain, and he went back to what he knew best. His best friend, his rabbi, his mentor was no longer there. But you know what? Moments later, Yeshua just rocks up on the beach. Peter had gone fishing. And it's worth a read, John 21, because there's more to this story. I'm only giving you the end bit, where they catch a lot of fish, and there's a great story with regard to that. And Peter comes back from catching the fish, and this is me just picturing the whole thing, and he steps out of the boat, and Yeshua's popped on the beach, and he's cooking breakfast, and he's using some charcoal. And I can imagine that Peter, as he stepped off that boat, smelt that charcoal and that fire. And it went straight back to the time when he's standing by the fire and he's warming his hands, and they say, Are you one of his disciples? No, I'm not one of his disciples. That smell triggered a memory of just prior to that where he had denied who Yeshua was. Imagine he'd been broken. Just, even after the great haul of fish that they'd caught prior to that, now he's at the reality that something's not right. Yeshua created that scene, note that. 3 questions, 3 denials. And Yeshua said to him, do you love me? Yeah, I love you. Do you love me? Yes, I love you. 3 times. And 3 responses, yes, I love you. And then 3 restorative words were from Yeshua. He says, feed my lambs. Forget about fishing for fish and get back to the commission that I gave you, which was to feed the flock. After that, spiritual healing took place, because that process of talking and remembering and being with the Master healed his soul. And Yeshua then says, let's eat breakfast. I've done some spiritual work, but let's be natural and eat proper food. You've been working hard. I ask you, what pain are you in? Heal the memory. Yeshua, Yahweh wants to heal the memory and give you restorative words. Be prepared to relive the memory so that restorative words can come and heal your wound, heal your spirit, heal your body, heal. And then the last part of this little bio was, he says, oh Yahweh, keep me from harm. Keep me from harm. Now that you've healed me, please just keep me from harm. He needs Yahweh's protection. I don't know if I've missed all this. Sorry. Let your hand be with me. Keep me from harm. And I want us to quote this. Most of us will know this. This is a beautiful psalm. Let's say it together. Yahweh is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow, I will fear no evil. For thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of Yahweh forever. You see, this protection, this psalm is all about the provision of Yahweh and his protection through every season of our lives. Verse 4 and 5 is the protection and the peace. You see, life has some dangerous and frightening seasons for all of us. Liana put herself out there today and made herself so vulnerable to us today. But life meets out some dangerous and frightening seasons. And the scriptures describe them as the valleys of the shadows. It's not just death, although we link it very much to when people have passed from this world to the next. What about the news of some terminally ill issue that you've got in your life? What about the sicknesses of like bipolar or schizophrenia? What about ongoing, persistent issues that dog us day after day after day? All of these can be seen as valley moments. But I want to say to you today that Yahweh is present, is unseen, but he is a very present help in time of need. And with his guiding tools, the rod and the staff, they will be your peace and safety even when surrounded by adversity. And he prays this prayer, oh Yahweh, protect me and keep me from harm. What happened here? He entered, that's my thoughts, he entered into a binding shalom contract with the God of heaven, Yahweh. And for the rest of his life, he was going to walk in peace and protection. Because the Bible tells us that Yahweh heard him and responded. He walked with Elohim, free from pain. The shalom of heaven was an arrangement that he had with heaven and himself. And that took him through. You see, I'm coming down. Once we start to expand into new territories, finding people, the destitute, the homeless, the lonely, we become and can become a target. The enemy does not like that. When I am starting to believe that Yahweh has called me, that just ordinary people, that is interested in ordinary people, when I start to believe that, the enemy does not like that. But let me tell you something, the protection of heaven is all at your disposal, and he is with you. So let me just see, yes. That's the fourth and fifth bit. And then, keep me from harm. Okay, we're closing. The truth of the matter is this. Ordinary people matter. Yahweh was interested in this man and his life's journey and acted on his behalf. It was Yahweh that granted his request. Some commentaries suggest that Jabez was blessed because he had a city named after him, 1 Chronicles 2:55. Yeah. Our families, our family history, our trauma, and our negative circumstances do not have to determine the trajectory of our lives. It does not. Our past and limiting labels do not have to dictate our future destiny. It can be turned around in a moment. And this prayer holds the key. Why not pray this prayer and see a miracle in your life? Why? Because ordinary people matter to Yahweh. I've got you at this prayer, and I want everyone who leaves this place to have this prayer to take home and to think about it. But I want to say here and now that just as Yeshua passed by the beach and healed Peter, so Yahweh Rafika, Yahweh Rapha, the healer of heaven, has come here today, and he is passing by. He wants to touch you, to heal you, to free you from your pain, because you matter to the Most High.